Okay, so for our second dugout discussions for this week, we are going to switch gears from crunching stats to cheering legends. And my guest, Brian Wright of Metsalgia, and I, we're going to draft our ultimate Mets squads from the Mets Alumni Classic that went down on Saturday. You saw Team Shea versus Team Citi Field. Each of us is going to pick a starter, a reliever, a catcher, a designated hitter. We're also going to pick a manager, and full outfield and infield positions. We're going to do all that and see who comes up with the most iconic lineup. Brian, what's going on? How you doing, man? Are you ready to go back to the classics?
I am very much ready, Dexter. It was fun to watch yesterday or Saturday with the Alumni Classic to not be as emotionally invested as we are in the real team. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is why I think this is good for this episode, because we've talked about this already in this episode, so much negativity around this team, right? Losing 8 out of 9 games. We're going to try to do something a little fun. We're going to do something for the people, try to lighten it up just a bit. So you saw the rosters, a lot of great Mets back in the building yesterday. That was really lovely to see. Love seeing some of the guys from the Shea era, from the Citi Field era, which still feels weird to say because the building's been open now for 16 years. But yes, it was really good to see a lot of these guys back and fun. And so since you are, I will say, the visitor here on the show, your second time on the show, I'm going to give you the first pick here. We're going to see. I did this for Yankees Old Timers Day with one of our producers here. That was fun. So, yeah, I'm going to give you the first pick. You get the first pick. You're looking at the roster. Who are you going with for your first pick?
First of all, I appreciate it. I'm not going to trade it away, like maybe someone might do. I'm going to go with Mike Piazza. I want a catcher, and I have the best hitting catcher of all time in this available. Obviously, a great clutch hitter with those teams in the late '90s and up till 2005. So, some might argue the greatest non-pitcher in Mets history. So I'm going with Mike Piazza.
I can rock with that. I'm a little bit bummed out. I wanted Mike Piazza. I was a Mike Piazza fan growing up. So since you went Piazza, you've got your catcher off the board. I'm going to go with who I think is one of the most underrated Mets of all time, and is arguably the Mets' best center fielder of all time. I don't think he gets his due because people always think about him and they think about how the season ended in 2006. So I'm going with Carlos Beltran. Carlos Beltran at center field, taking him with my number one pick. Carlos Beltran needs more respect put on his name. Fantastic bet. Look at the numbers. Fantastic. He's great. So I'm going Carlos Beltran, center fielder, with my first pick.
Yeah, no argument there. To tell the audience how much I am involved or how much I studied this. He's second on my draft board. I actually have a draft board. I have a list available on my Google.
Brian came prepared.
I'm just like I'm like, okay, who would be second? Any chance Dexter doesn't take him? And I'm just like, okay, I'd pounce on Carlos Beltran. So I totally agree with that one. And no argument with me with that one as well.
There we go. Okay, so there you go. All right, so you went catcher first pick. I go center fielder first pick. What you got for your second pick?
This is tough. I'm balancing two different players. I'm gonna go with I think is the most exciting player in Mets history. A top of the lineup star, dynamic base stealer, and also had power at the top of the lineup. So I'm gonna go with Jose Reyes.
Taking my guys, man. You just out here taking my guys. Big Reyes fan. All right, so you know you have guys can get on base, can steal some bases for you. I do agree with you. Yeah, I'm trying to think who was more exciting than Jose Reyes in Mets history.
It's hard to say. We might be seeing one on the current team, but yeah, Jacob deGrom could also be considered there.
Exciting, yes.
Yeah, so I would.
Exciting. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, but in terms of like an everyday player, yeah, listen, I'm sure there's people who watched the team in the 80s that'll say Darryl Strawberry. And I want to let people know, Darryl Strawberry, who was an ambassador named for this team, he is not part of our drafting list here because he was an ambassador, not somebody that actually played in the game. He did appear for the event, but did not play in the game. So just want to clear that up, that why we would not be picking Darryl Strawberry, although he was there. Yeah, I don't think you're going to find too many people, Brian, more exciting than Jose Reyes. I agree. Listen, I loved watching Jose Reyes when he got on. And there's nothing more I love than seeing a Jose Reyes triple. That was exciting. Those were exciting times there. Okay, so I like your picks. You got Piazza, You got Reyes, you got your catcher and your shortstop. Okay. So, as I think about this and I look at my somewhat draft board here, I think when you got a value, one of the values when you talk about the Mets is it's hard to find value with starting pitching with the Mets,
Mhm.
right? When you look at them through their history. So I got to go with a guy who was tremendous for the Mets here. And I'm just double checking something on my list because I was making sure I don't want to speak out of turn and say that this guy was not here. And like, no, he was. I just wanted to make sure and double checks. I'm going with Johan Santana. Um, I outside of maybe we're thinking now more modern times than Jacob DeGrom. This
Mhm.
guy was a big game pitcher. He's one of the Mets' best free agent signings. Obviously, injuries hampered him at the end of his career, but we know what a big game pitcher he was. We talked about 2007 in this episode,
Mhm.
Brian, and Johan Santana is not the man you could blame down the stretch of that season because he showed up. Other people didn't show up for him, but that man definitely showed up in '07.
No, I remember, yeah, 2008, second to last game of the season, that game against Florida.
Yep.
He had a bad knee. He was pitching on 3 days rest. It was, second to last game at Shea Stadium. They had to win, and he pitched a complete game. Pitched a complete game. So I loved Yohan Santana. I thought it was a great pickup when they got him from the Twins. The no hitter is so memorable, but to me, that 2008 game 161 against the Marlins, that's my favorite Santana performance, and I don't think that's such a hot take.
Nah, I don't think that's a hot take at all. I was actually in the building for that game. That's not a hot take. It's a great game. It's an all-time legendary performance. Unfortunately, the season didn't end the way Mets fans wanted it to in '08, but that is the legendary performance. All right, so I went with a pitcher there. We still got a little bit more of a roster to fill. What do you got here for the next pick?
All right, I'm going with who was on the next on my list after Jose Reyes, and that is Edgardo Alfonso, best second baseman. I got the middle of the middle of the field taken care of, at least as far as the infield is concerned, and the best second baseman in Mets history, a clutch hitter in 1999. I can't forget, how many big hits he had in the wild card game against the Reds. Then he hit the grand slam against the Diamondbacks in Game One. Had a postseason hitting streak that I think went into the 2000 season. So and it was steady with the glove as well, and just very underrated, which is hard to just hard to be in New York. It's hard to be underrated in New York, but he was. And he had back injuries at the end of his career, but in that 90, he came up in 95, but that up till 2001 or two when he left, there was no one kind of more reliable on the team than Edgar Alfonso.
Oh, one of the most reliable Mets at all time. I mean, one of the Mets best second basemen. You'd probably have to definitely say in their history for sure. No, so that's a good pick there. That's a good pick. I feel like you're just a step ahead of me. Our draft board's very similar. I was about to go there as well too. Okay, so next for me, you went second baseman. I'm going first baseman here. I'm going with a guy who I actually think is had a fantastic career. You're going to remember him on that 2006 Mets team. This guy is a borderline Hall of Famer, in my opinion. Was 20, I don't remember, if it was 24, 27 homers away, being shy of 500 in his career. That's Carlos Delgado. I mean, this guy hit big homers in the Mets lineup that year. I know when he played for the Mets in '06, in that era, he was coming more towards the end of his career, but just a tremendous hitter. You can put him in first. We also going to select him as a designated hitter. I'm going to put him as first baseman here for the purposes of this draft. I'm going with Carlos Delgado, and people should, put a little bit more for Carlos Delgado to get into the Hall of Fame. Brian, he's a tremendous guy. Just missed 500 homers, but I kind of think he deserves to get in.
I agree with you. I think he deserves a lot more respect in terms of Hall of Fame voting. And I don't know what his current status is as far as that's concerned. I don't know if he's still on the ballot. I have
He's
to look
not
that
on the
up.
ballot anymore. He is
Yeah.
not on
Okay.
the ballot anymore. Yeah.
That's
Then he's
that's a
history.
shame. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's no, and yeah, I mean, I love Carlos Delgado. I love that pick. And yeah, he was for that 2006 team, came up with a lot of big home runs there. I'll never forget the in 2008 in the Subway Series game,
Oh
picking up
yeah,
9 RBIs, which was a record, which I guess it still is a record. Brandon Nimmo, I don't know if he broke it or tied it. He may have tied it. So one of the greatest performances, hitting performances in Mets history.
yeah, no doubt about that. All right, so got my first baseman. I've got a center fielder as well too, and I got my starting pitcher. What you got next?
Yeah, I am going to get my first outfielder. Now he's not number one. He's not at the top of my draft board at the current moment. But I want to get an outfielder for myself, and I'm gonna get a guy who I guess played several positions in the outfield. I think of him more as a center fielder. That's Curtis Granderson.
Ah,
Uh, Guy, I don't, his defense I don't think was spectacular, but I remember the 2016 playoff game making that great catch to
great
preserve a
catch.
scoreless tie with Noah Syndergaard on the mound. Didn't end the way we wanted, but for the moment it was an amazing catch. But he was a really solid hitter, power hitter for the Mets. Came to the Mets, I think it was 2013 or 14. But 2015 and 16, those two playoff years, had 26 homers and 30 homers respectively. Had a lot of big moments in the postseason in 2015. I remember, in the World Series coming up with a big hit and the NLCS coming up with a big hit. So just Carlos, or Curtis Granderson, I should say, it was just, if we're going to go even further and talk about intangibles, there's really no one better than him.
Yeah, no, one of my favorite Mets, underrated leader in the clubhouse as well too there. So to put him in center field, I know he played a lot of right field during his time with the Mets here, but that's fine. I like that there as one of your outfielders there. So good choice there with the Grandy man. Love seeing him in the Mets uniform. Tremendous is great. Okay, this is where it started. I feel like we got a lot of these top players out of here. This is where it gets a little bit tough. But you obviously went with catcher. You got Mike Piazza. And look, no shade to the rest of the catchers that are on these options for us to take. Nobody's Mike Piazza. So we understand that here. But in the mid 2000s, there was a catcher for the Mets that was really good part of the lineup. That's Paul LaDuca. I'm going to go with Paul LaDuca. Shout out to Paul LaDuca. He once followed me on Twitter. So that was kind of cool. And he sent me a DM one time. Shout out to Paul LaDuca. But Paul LaDuca was a really solid catcher in that lineup for the Mets. Gritty, good leader in terms of calling games. Came up with some big hits during that '06 season. Just a guy that the Mets fans really loved and I think really appreciated in that era. So solid catcher. I think he's better than some of the other catching options we have here. So I want to get some good value at catcher. I'm going with Paul LaDuca as my pick here. So Paul LaDuca, really good Met, and I think deserving. Good to see him back around the Mets too. I thought it was nice they had him back too the other day.
Yeah, no, that was really good. And I think of him being in the two hole, just
Mm-hmm.
kind of just, always getting a base hit. Reyes would be on base, he'd get a base hit, or he'd get a base hit, and then Beltran or Delgado or Wright would follow and drive him in. So, and was just a steady catcher behind the plate. So yeah, that's a no shame in having him behind the plate.
Yeah, nah, no shame. So okay, so that's one position we both have center fielders we've taken care of. We've taken care of catcher. Both of us have too. All right, so where are you going next, Brian?
I'm gonna get my pitcher, my starting pitcher, I should
I
say.
think I know where you're going here.
I'm gonna go with Al Leiter.
Oh, oh,
Yeah.
that's not where I thought you were going.
Ah,
Okay.
okay. Yeah. Was it? I could. Well, I guess now we both got a starting pitcher. Were you thinking Matt Harvey?
Yeah, I thought you might go with Harvey. I thought Harvey was where you
Yeah.
were going to go. That's where I thought you were going to
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
That's possible. Very possible. And I obviously would have considered that, considering his 2013 season, 2015 season after Tommy John surgery. But Al Leiter, great left-handed starter, a real, for lack of a better term, a gamer, a guy who, had a lot of big game, came through in a lot of big game spots and none bigger than the 1999 wild card game. We mentioned that earlier with the
Yep.
Alfonso home run. And, it's hard to say. I've done these, these historical, calculations about players, and you go like, oh, who would you put on your team? And it's hard to say because pitching is especially weird, or especially just kind of has evolved so much. But I think about Al Leiter and I think about how long he went into games. The 2000 World Series, I just remember him being out there in Game 5 for 140 pitches, it seems, which is unheard of. It's
Nobody's
most,
doing that
most,
today, Brian. Not happening.
most
Not even
times,
close.
yeah, most times that's two starts
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
And he was out there for almost an entire start. And I thought his best season was 1998. I don't have it up in front of me, but ERA under 3, and that was, we all know 1998 was the height of the steroid era. So to do that in that season is pretty remarkable. And then 1999, 2000, and even beyond that, just being a really good, reliable starting pitcher. So when I look at guy, if I want number one pitcher that I can count on, I feel like Al Leiter just slightly over Matt Harvey.
No, I like this pick. And you know, it's funny. I just interviewed Al Leiter the other day, so I spoke with him for a little bit. And you know, the thing I always think about him is I definitely think about '99, that play-in game, if you want to call it that, against Cincinnati, and you know how good he was in that game. And then also, you talk about the length, but the grittiness, the toughness
Hmm.
of him, right? He's a guy when you say you can count on that. It's like, okay, even if he doesn't have his best stuff, he's going to figure it out. He's going to dig deep. He was going to find a way to get it. That was Al Leiter. You trusted him in a big game, trusted him in a big spot. You trusted him even when he didn't have his best pitches working on whatever day or night that he would come through. So, yeah, that's it. And, you know, in talking to him, you see how he looks at, you know, other pitchers. And he was talking to me a little bit about Jonah Tong and Brandon Sproat and Nolan McLean now with this team. And he really loves McLean's stuff and
Hmm.
also his makeup and how he approaches the game. So, you know, it's a lot I think about with Al Leiter. Now, great pitcher, great pick. I'm glad. Okay, you went with somebody from the Shea era. I didn't know if you were not going to go maybe with Harvey there, but you go there. So we both got our starting pitchers. I went Santana. You go Leiter. Can't go wrong with that. All right. Slim. I feel like we're getting slim pickings now. All right. So you got Reyes as your shortstop, and you also have your second baseman there. I'm gonna go grab my shortstop here, and I will keep it a buck with this guy. He was not somebody that was going to hit for great average for you, but man, what a defensive player! Everybody, the wizard, the guy who's like the wizard here, Ray Ordonez. You want to
Hmm.
talk about one of the most exciting Mets players in their history? Defensively, is this guy, right? Not offensively, definitely not exciting offensively, but defensively, I mean, what was better than seeing a ball that looked like it was going to the hole and seeing Ordonez dive to his right, get up, and make some ridiculous throw from the edge of the grass to first base? I mean, he was just amazing. I mean, one of the best defensive shortstops you've seen in Major League Baseball history, hands down. So, yes, he's not going to do a lot with the bat, and he's definitely hitting ninth in my lineup. But this guy was just a defensive wizard and a joy to watch, and I was really happy to see him back out there. Number 10, Ray Ordonez, got to give him that shortstop spot for on my roster for sure.
Yeah, no, Ray Ordonez was, I mean, he made the spectacular look kind of just ordinary, and he would make these play. I mean, I've looked through, highlight reels and just like, how did he do those plays with the glove? He would just like make these like that short dive to grab it and then get up and like whirl around and throw it. And even like a turn on a double play he was just like, yeah, he was just dynamic with the glove. Three-time Gold Glove winner.
Yep,
Really kind of, I remember him coming up in 96,
'96.
with huge opening day, made a tremendous play. And kind of, I think the hype there was kind of was really, I would say, just still deserved. But I think people expected more with the bat. But he saved a lot of runs, so that's something too.
Yeah, no, he saved a lot of runs, and that's why it happened. You know, you're going to be solid up the middle with him there. You can't go wrong there. So yeah, Ray Ordonez, man, what a player to watch. I remember. Last thing I'll say is, I remember just like playing around or playing baseball. I used to be trying to do all the twirls he did and dive for balls. I used to try to mimic Ray Ordonez, not offensively, defensively, but I used to try to
Yeah.
do that. So that was fun times when I was younger. All right, so who are you going with your next pick?
So this might be stretching the rules, and actually I would need to look to see if this person played third base
Yeah.
during either his Mets career or his entire career. But maybe we could just, I don't know, we'll see if we can stretch the rules. I want to go with his Drupal Cabrera. as my third baseman.
I think he did play
And
some third base. I'm
I feel
pretty
like he
sure he
did.
did. I'm pretty sure he
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
I feel like he played second base, I'm more confident about, but third
Yeah.
base. But I could move Ricardo Alfonso to third base, who was there for a while.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I could move these guys around. It might not be the best defensive infield as far as maybe not be the best defensive infield, but it's the versatile. But yeah, Cabrera, was looking him up, had like a 6.7 WAR in 3 years with the Mets, which surprised me a little bit higher than I anticipated. But he was, yeah, but he was in, that mid 2010s, kind of guy you could count on with the bat. He had 117 OPS plus in those 3 years. And if I had to, narrow it down to one memory, I think of 2016, late September, 3-run homer against the Phillies, needing to win to stay in the wild card race, and he delivered. And Gary Cohen delivered the double out of here, and I still have this. I don't know what. It must have come out the next year, but I have
Is
the
it bobblehead?
bobblehead.
You have his
There's a
bobblehead. Okay.
bobblehead of him, the bat flip and him up, just like screaming.
Love
And
that bat. Love that
so
bat
yeah, I'm
flip.
keeping that one forever.
Yeah, no, I love that bat flip and him screaming up to the heavens, looking up to the heavens as he's screaming. That was a great one. Okay, yeah, no, I believe he did play some third for the Mets, particularly in that season. I feel like I recall that. Maybe I'm making it up because I want to. But what? You know what? We made the rules. We're putting him at third, Brian. We'll be
Okay.
fine with that. We'll put him at third. We're allowing that to happen for the purposes of what we're doing. Okay, this is man. This is where we're really getting in the weeds on players here. You just took your third baseman. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to take a guy I just talked to the other day, too, and had a good conversation. You now see him on SNY for the pre and post game show a lot of times. And at third base, I'm going to take Todd Zeile. Todd Zeile, versatile infielder. Could play. You could move him about a bit, but primarily was at third. Played a little bit of first as well too at times. But Todd Zeile, a solid hitter. Good moxie. Never a star, but could give you a little bit of pop. Could hit for a decent average. Wouldn't hurt you with the fielding. No, he's not David Wright here at third. Who we would have took if we could, but we could not. So Todd Zeile, solid person, great guy. Great job on the broadcast with SNY. We love him. We love him there. And he was kind enough to take some time with me to talk about the Mets and 9/11 the other day. So I'm going with Todd Zeile. A good dude, solid member of those late 90s, early 2000s Mets teams that you remember, and was very key and instrumental in those teams in their postseason success. Always give you a quality at bat. That's something I always think about Todd Zeile, right? Not the most talented offensive player, but he always give you a quality at bat. And that's something you like in the lineup. You can't go wrong with that. So give me Todd Zeile at third base.
That sounds good. And he played. I mean, he could have got him for catcher maybe. He could
That
have
too.
bumped him
Forgot
if he
about
wanted.
that. Good point. I mean, he was like almost like the third emergency catcher on a lot of these teams, right?
Yeah, he definitely started as a catcher
Yep.
with the Cardinals, and then gosh, he played for so many teams. But yeah, he was like an emergency catcher, and he played a lot of positions. And yeah, the 2000 team, they lost Olrud, but they got
Yep.
Todd Zeile, and that was, I think a good fill-in for that team that season. You're absolutely right about him being like getting a good at bat. So my next pick,
Yeah, what
I'm
you got?
going with my relief pitcher. I'm gonna get my relief pitcher.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna get a closer. I
I
he
know where you're going.
he didn't our rules are very, I don't want to say loose, but we've kind of, we're kind of making up as not making
Yeah.
up as we go along, but we
We
have
talked about this. We
he
discussed it, but
didn't
we're working it. Yeah.
he didn't pitch, but he was in the lineup. So I'm gonna go with John Franco.
Okay, yeah.
And I heard Mets wins have come few and far between. So it was like one of the last wins the Mets had on that Friday night in Cincinnati. And the shoe game with Edwin Diaz, where he had to tie his shoe and loaded the bases, nobody out, and extricated himself out of that and got the win on the help of Acuna's play at second base. I I think someone had, I don't know if it was on Twitter or something like that. The few times I look at Twitter, I saw someone post that Edwin Diaz is like Armando Benitez, and I immediately thought he's mostly more like John Franco. To me, Franco was a guy who would do something like that. He would tie his shoes. He would some way to delay the game or throw the game off its pace. He would walk a guy, give a hit. The bases would be loaded. There'd be guys in scoring position. You didn't know if he was going to get it done. He ultimately did. Most often got it done. Most saves in Mets history. Most saves by a left-hander.
Left-hander.
I still think he has that. I don't think Billy Wagner surpassed him. So, yeah, I just a guy. He led the league in saves. I think in 1994, strike short in season, but he did do that. So a real good closer for most of his time with the Mets, and then when Benitez came on and became the closer because of an injury, was a guy you could count on late in the game as like an eighth inning guy in 99, 2000. So I definitely like going with John Franco here to close the game out.
Shout out to John Franco, fellow Brooklynite.
Yeah.
Also,
Might be a little stressful, but it'll close it out.
he definitely. It was a high wire act whenever
Yeah.
he and that's no shade to John Franco. And he did try to change the pace of the game. You're 100% right about that. Also spoke with John Franco the other day about the Mets team, and it was always good to see him. And I know he was very proud of. He's talked about this many times before, pitching for the Mets as a Brooklyn guy who grew up rooting for the Mets. So you knew that meant a lot to him. I must say, whoever put that on Twitter and said that Edwin Diaz reminded them of Armando Benitez, and this is no shade to Armando Benitez. Do you remember Armando Benitez? Because
Yeah.
Edwin Diaz is not him. Let's put it like that, right? Like, you still have some good memories of Edwin Diaz. And Edwin Diaz can sometimes get in some tight situations, but he's had
No.
his best season is in a whole different universe than Armando
Yeah.
Benitez's best season, which actually didn't come with the Mets, came with the Orioles. But you understand what I'm saying.
No, I got you. No, I think he was trying to. It was more about the like drama or something like that. And
Was
the case.
Armando Benitez drama or just pure stress? Because I feel like it's the latter. It's pure stress.
No, it was more of the latter.
Yeah, that's how I feel. All right, no, good pick there. Can't go wrong with John Franco. Great point about him having the most saves as a left-hander, which is still really impressive. That's still there. That record still holds to this day. I'm going to go back to the infield, and I'm going to go to play second base because I do not have a second baseman. I'm going to go with somebody off the Citi Field roster. I'm going to go with Tejada. Solid second baseman. Career didn't pan out, I think, the way Mets fans would have hoped to with the hype of him coming up. Didn't become quite the hitter that you would have thought, but sure-handed defensively, gave you a little bit of speed as well, too. Yeah, just a solid pick out of what we have left to play second base. If we look at some of the other options here, not so. I was looking at the Shea options too. You took Edgardo Alfonso, so not there. No Miguel Tejada. Do you have any fond memories of Miguel Tejada?
Well, you mean Ruben Tadder?
Ruben Tejada. So why did I say Miguel Tejada? Oakland.
Well, it's okay because he was in the infield and
sorry, Ruben Tejada, not Miguel Tejada. Ruben Tejada, highly touted Mets prospect. Obviously, the point still applies. The hitting never really materialized in the way he thought. I was thinking Miguel Tejada, Ruben Tejada's hitting not the same, not the same at all. There, and no shade to Ruben Tejada. But do you have any fond memories of Ruben Tejada that you think of, or is the memory I'm thinking about with Ruben Tejada? Are we thinking about the same? It's not really. I don't know if it's a fond memory, I would say, but it's a memory.
It's I think Gary Cohen put this on the broadcast. He said it might have been the loudest ovation in the history of Citi Field when he was introduced for Game 3 before Game 3 of the 2015 NLDS after Chase Utley,
Yes,
broke his leg.
Chase Utley, yes,
Well, everyone remembers that.
yes.
Yeah, so that's my memory of him.
Not a fond one. Not a fond one there.
Yeah,
Brian.
it's not. But I as far as like the picks could go from what you have left in terms of what you need, it's definitely worth definitely a good choice there. But yeah, most of my thoughts on Ruben Tejada are left to that, and it's unfortunate that happened, obviously, because it's just could have helped the Mets in 2015. Who knows? It's you just but at least the Mets moved on in that series.
Yeah, they did move on. They got the last laugh, and I guess we can say that. But yeah, great job in that Game 3 of the NLDS for the fans, giving him a standing ovation there. That was a nice job, and Gary referenced that too as well.
Yeah.
All right, who you got next?
All right, I don't have a first baseman.
You do not.
As far as I don't. And I'm going to go with who I think is the best. I would have taken Todd Zeile, but now I'm going to go with Ike Davis. I considered him if if I already had a first baseman, I would take him as a DH. But I'm going with him as a first baseman. Over 5 seasons with the Mets, an above league average hitter, and best season by far was his 32 home run year in 2012. And I don't even remember if the Fences were in then. Maybe they were, but it's pretty impressive at Citi Field to get over 30 home runs. I think especially in that era. So I like Ike Davis in the spot as a first baseman. Obviously, the Delgados are great, and Zeal is great, but I think Ike Davis is a solid choice.
Where were you, Brian, at the time, if you can take you back into your fandom, where were you on the Ike Davis Lucas Duda debate? Remember that when everybody's like, okay, who's going to be the Mets first baseman in the future? Were you a Davis guy? Or were you a Duda guy? Where were you on that?
I was more of an Ike Davis guy, to be honest with you. I don't know if that was the right side, but that was kind of where I was going. I just liked I just kind of felt that he was just the better first baseman than Duda, and I feel like Duda might have been. It's funny because I think if there had been a designated hitter, we'd solve this issue. Like I feel like Lucas Duda would have been a great designated hitter. So to me, that's how I cite it. I feel like Duda, especially in 2015, kind of being there for that, it seemed like that was kind of the better player overall. But you never know if Ike Davis had been with the team, how that would have gone. But I was kind of more on the Ike Davis team then.
Yeah, I was too. And it's funny, Duda at the time, you're right. Had he been a designated hitter, if that was in the National League, which was not at the time, he would have been perfect for that. I do agree with you on that. Okay, next up for me, because as I'm looking at my roster, I've got my entire infield set. I do, and only have taken one outfield spot. So I'm going to go back to the outfield, and this is where it gets a little hard for me. But I'm gonna throw it back because you know what? I want some fun on my team, and so we talk about exciting players, but this is a true fan favorite here. So I'm going with Mr. Hawaii 5-0, Mr. Benny Agbayani, to play. I'll put him in. Agbayani played a little bit of left and right, probably more right if I remember correctly. That he did. So I'm going to put Benny Agbayani in right. Gives you some power. You like the power there. Fun guy, great in the clubhouse. Had some really good homers for the Mets in the late '90s. That you loved with them, especially as the team was starting to turn the corner once Piazza came aboard and they were starting to become a playoff team at that time. So an integral part of that team. Everybody says he's a great spirit. Everybody loves him around the team. You never heard anybody say anything bad about Benny Agbayani. Just a fun guy. He's going to give you a little bit of power. You know what I mean? So there you go. Benny Agbayani as my right fielder.
That's a great choice. I love Benny, and I think I'm not alone in that, as you had pointed out. I think he's one of the most popular Mets, especially of the last 30 years. And I just, the two home runs that come to mind are the one he hit in Japan opening series of 2000, and one in against San Francisco in the NLDS. So no, I envy you having Benny Agbayani on your team, so 'cause I definitely loved him. As far as my next choice,
Yeah.
because I have one outfielder
One outfielder. Yeah. You
and
have who'd you take?
infield
You took what?
Anderson.
Granderson to play center field. Yep.
I could move him. I could shift him to right field and try to get more defense in center field. And while this guy just it's kind of like with you with Jose Reyes, not a great hitting outfielder or a great hitter. But if I want to save runs, I want Juan Lagares in center field. So I'm going to put Juan Lagares in center field and move Granderson to right field. I'm already, already being a manager or
Already
GM.
being strategic. I see.
Yeah, we're shifting my roster around as I'm going through the draft. So Juan Lagares, Gold Glover in 2014.
Yep.
Not as great with the bat, but I feel like with the team I have with guys like Piazza and Reyes and at Alfonso, I feel like he could be in the bottom of the order and be a good defender.
Yeah, he was really. I mean, talk about that 2014 season playing in center field. I mean, you felt comfortable out there. I mean, whether it went to either gap, you thought he could get it. If it was going deep, you thought he could get it. If you need him to come in to play for a ball, you thought he could do it. I mean, tremendous defensively. You always wish the bat became a little bit better. You thought he could be the Mets center fielder of the future, especially after they came out of the era of Beltran roaming center field. But Yeah, no, that's a solid pick. I like your outfield defensively. It's always funny when you think of these guys. Are you drafting them at the, and we didn't discuss this, but are you drafting them at the time in which they played with the Mets, or are you drafting them at their peak of when they played? It's always interesting how you do it. But if you have Granderson at his peak or Lagares at the peak of his defensive powers,
Mhm.
it's pretty good outfield there, man. With some speed, I like the speed you got there too. So that's pretty good. You can't be mad at that. Okay, so for me, this is where it gets tough, Ryan. Because I'm going back. I was thinking of Lagares too to grab, and there's some good defensive outfielders here, and there's some ways that I'm thinking about some people, and I'm like, okay, but I don't want to be. They have great Mets moments, but do I want to draft them for the purposes of building a team? I'm gonna go. This is tough. I'm gonna go. Okay, I'm gonna go with a guy, and I'm gonna put him in left field. He was a highly touted Mets prospect. He did not live up. Uh, Sounds like a lot. It's a lot of Mets. Sounds like we're talking about this about a lot of Mets prospects in terms of position players. He did not live up to what I think people thought he could be as a hitter, and honestly maybe as a center fielder too. But was solid and did contribute to some teams in the late '90s, and that's Jay Payton. I'm gonna go with Jay Payton, but became solid and a contributing outfielder. I mean, his career became more of a sort of a fourth outfielder, but he was a guy who eventually played left. Was a solid guy, never a Gold Glover, but he's fine. So you look at my outfield. There's not a lot of pop outside of Benny Agbayani. Obviously, if I had someone like a Beltran, you'd feel you feel good about him in his position with Beltran. But outside of that, not a lot of pop. But as a corner outfielder, you can do worse there. So I'm going to go with him. There's some other guys on the board that I thought about because I was thinking about Kirk Neuenhuis.
Mhm.
Who obviously had a fantastic moment that I will never forget on September 2nd, 2015, down in D.C. at Nationals Park. And your boy was in the building for that. That was a great night. Mets come back, being down
Mhm.
7-1 to the Nationals, and that's when you knew they were going to take the division. And then I thought about Andy Chavez as well, too. Obviously, we know it was an amazing catch. I, I don't know if with Chavez, and we can get to this, but you couldn't have told me nothing in that Game 7 in 2006. You couldn't,
Yeah.
Brian. I swore they were winning. When you see a play like that in sports, you're usually like, "This is going to happen. The Mets are going to win." They did not. But look, Jay Payton, good player for the Mets. He was a guy that I think you're glad to see contributed to winning teams, even though he never became the prospect that people thought he would. It was good to see that he was able to contribute to Mets teams and to their winning in the late '90s as they made their playoff runs.
Yeah, no, in 2000, I had a really good rookie year. He was third in rookie of the year voting.
Mm-hmm.
I think if like in 2000, he had a big hit in the division series and that like extra innings. And came through with some moments there. It was the game two, it was the one where Franco struck out Barry Bonds at the end. So, but yeah, no, I mean, if you get someone for their potential, it's always possible. You always think like, hey, if they had the potential, they could have been something like really special, and it's
Right.
unfortunate it didn't work out that way. You mentioned two guys who I've thought of next. And as far as my next selection, and as far as my team overall, it feels like it's getting a lot faster.
You have some speed. You got some
I
speed.
have speed. I'm gonna add more.
Uh oh.
It was, and you talked about the catch, and I was right with you. When he made that catch, I was in college in my dorm room, and I was like, oh my goodness, we're winning. I was not even winning this game. We're winning the World Series. We
I
are
felt that way.
destined to win. And someone else that came out of my dorm room and said, "Did anyone see that catch?" And that's one of my all-time. As unfortunately, it was one of my favorite memories. Then goes to one of my least favorite, and everyone feels the same way. That's a Mets fan. What happened a few innings later? So. I'm going with Endy Chavez for my spot to be a left fielder. Maybe he can make you another great catch. He was mainly a reserve in 2006, but was a spark plug, is for lack of a better term
Yeah.
again, and a key guy off the bench. He could use his legs to get a hit, and of course play defense. So definitely. I feel like I'm just like in the moment thinking of my lineup, and I'm like Jose Reyes and Andy Chavez and Curtis Granderson and Juan Lagares are all in my lineup. I mean, I'm gonna be stealing a lot of bases, but I feel good with that.
No, I like that pick. I thought about Chavez there, the speed. I like that too. You know, he was good. I went with sort of the potential of Jay Payton. He's supposed to be this 5 tool player, but not there. But no, love Chavez. Love that pick there. Okay, as we get into more of this and the depth of this, we got a couple more picks that we have to do. You took John Franco, so he's off the board as a relief pitcher. So there's no room for me to go there. So when I was thinking about this, and listen, you could take a start. We have no rules this. If you want to take a starter and put him as a reliever, you could do that. I guess so. But since you picked an actual reliever, I'm going to go with an actual reliever who I think is was one of the Mets' best bridge guys in terms of the pen, um, and that is Turk Wendell. Turk Wendell was one of my favorite Mets relievers. Loved that he wore the number 99. I just thought that was so dope when I was when I was younger. I was like, oh, he's out here wearing 99. Um, was a really good part of the bullpen of those Mets teams. There, really solid addition. I'm actually trying to remember the Mets. Was that 98 or 99? They traded for Turk Wendell, right? Or was he part
I
of the team
don't
that
remember.
season? I don't know if he was a
I know he
sign. I
was.
can't remember that now.
Yeah, I know he was a Cub before
Yes, I remember that.
to the Mets, and I don't remember if like because I'm thinking about the Mets and Cubs making trades. I remember like Lance Johnson was in a trade and
Yep.
Brian McCarthy, and I don't know if there's and Mark Clark, and I don't know if I'm overlapping or thinking of separate trades. So,
I was
yeah,
trying to remember that. Either way, doesn't change the fact that excuse me, he was a fantastic reliever. In that, I just always loved his delivery. Got a lot of big outs for the Mets in the postseason. Was a guy you could count on. So, you know, he was mostly a seventh inning guy. Could also pitch to eighth if needed. Could give you sometimes 5 outs if needed. Something you don't see. It's rare. You talked about the high pitch count without Leiter, but he was a guy you just liked him. He had the long hair, wore number 99, brought a lot of energy. Turk Wendell. That's my relief pitcher. I'm going with.
and another thing that which I also mentioned on the broadcast that you don't see anymore or don't hear about anymore is he pitched nine. He had made 9 appearances in a row, like in 9 straight games, which is really hard to believe.
Never gonna
And
see that. Never.
yeah, I never have seen someone
No.
do that. Make 9 appearances in 9 games. Yeah, so no, he was quirky to put it mildly,
Yep.
and but yeah, he had some good seasons. I was looking him up, and just really impressed with, he was a solid pitcher for several seasons for the Mets.
Correct.
Um, so I believe I am down to my designated hitter
You are.
because I have 3 outfielders. Yeah, I have every other position filled. So my designated hitter, and we're down to the wire, and we're down to the end here with the number of selections. I went with Kelly Johnson, who I thought was a really good trade. Not the biggest trade the Mets made in 2015, but a really solid trade along with Juan Uribe with the Braves in like I said in 2015. And then they did it again in 2016 when Johnson left the Mets after the end of the season. They got him again, and he had played just 131 games. And maybe I'm thinking about him with other teams as far as like, oh, I want to pick him, but he's a 106 OPS plus over 131 games with the Mets, so I feel like that's a solid choice to be a DH, and obviously could play an outfield as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a solid choice. So I'm going next up for me is designated hitter as well too, and I'm going with a guy I mentioned before because he had some versatility. He could play the outfield as well too, and that'll be Kirk Neuenhuis. I think Kirk Neuenhuis's best moment is the one I mentioned before, September 2nd, 2015, against the Nationals. Hits a big home run to give the Mets the lead. I was there for that game with my cousin who's a big Mets fan, and that was a good night for Mets fans. Put like that.
I,
That was a good night for Mets fans. I
no,
remember. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Go ahead, Brian. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say like, I think we talked about this before. I was at the game as well.
Yes, we talked about that. We both were in the building at the
Yeah.
same time, which is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was that was one of my favorite memories of watching the Mets in person or in general. So, I was yeah, no, glad we were both at that to watch that fantastic comeback from down 7-1.
I will never forget being at that game and the Mets fans that were sitting around me with my cousin, and just I was saying to them, "Hey, we're gonna," because they got all dejected by the second, midway through the second inning. Like, we're gonna come back one run at a time, and they did. And I'll never forget. I got on the Metro, leaving Nationals Park, and a Nats fan just looked at me and was like, "Yeah, y'all got the division." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, you know." So that was a fun night for it's fun nights for Mets fans. Okay, I believe we've got everybody, but we are down to manager, which is interesting. Who are you going with for your manager?
It's going to be one of the two Shea Stadium managers, with all respect to Terry Collins and Jerry Manuel, who were the managers that were part of the festivities. As much as I love Willie Randolph, and I thought he got a raw deal in 2008, getting fired, in Anaheim, that's a whole nother deal, a whole nother story, and I don't think that he deserved it. I'm going with Bobby Valentine. Um, 1999 and 2000, those back-to-back postseason appearances, which, are pretty rare in Mets history to have two consecutive playoff appearances. So, he was obviously a character to kind of put it lightly, a guy that probably didn't, a lot of players didn't go along with, his GM didn't get along with him. But if I want someone to win games, and I would always take Bobby Valentine. I thought he was a real solid manager who got a lot of his players. And even like before those two postseason appearances, the 1997 team, which was his first full season, I mean, that team won 88 games. That was pre-Piazza. I
Yep.
mean, they have a lot. I mean, Rick Reed was Bobby Jones were two of their best pitchers. And so that was a team that did a lot with not a lot on their roster. And then in 98 got them to the precipice of the playoffs. And then, of course, 99 and 2000. But yeah, so that makes, I feel pretty good about that. I love Willie Randolph, but I'm going with Bobby V.
Yeah, I think it's hard to go against Bobby V as the best manager here because when you look at that stretch from '97, as you made a great point about them overachieving that year, really, because I think people expected the Mets to make a little bit of a jump, but 88 wins and was a really big jump for them that year. I'm forgetting what they did in '96. I feel like they were in the 70s in terms of wins, if I remember correctly. But when you look at that stretch from '97 to 2001, that's a good of a stretch for any manager in Mets history without having won a title, right? He's not Davey Johnson, rest in peace, but that's a great stretch for a Mets manager. You're right; it's hard to go against him. Now, for me, as manager, because I agree with you. For me, it was between the two Shea managers. That was it for me. With respect to Terry Collins and Jerry Manuel, 2007, 2008, can't just. I'm not saying it's all your fault. Just can't do it. I'm gonna go with Willie Randolph because I think Willie Randolph was a good manager. I wish somebody ever had a good explanation for me. One, why he got fired. Two, how he is never managed again. That is weird to me. Also, I'm going to give Willie Randolph some love. We are both from the same neighborhood in Brooklyn, East Flatbush. So, got to give him some love there. I think Willie Randolph was a good manager that had a great pulse on that 2006 Mets team and really turned that team around from the doldrums of the early part of the 2000s into the mid 2000s and really set the culture of that team for then what Jerry Manuel inherited in the following years. But no, Willie Randolph is a good manager. I think it always bothers. I'm glad to see him back. I want to say that first of all. It's really good to see him back and around the Mets. I thought he was a good mind. I would have liked to have seen more of what he could have done with the Mets and then even elsewhere. I just never understood why he didn't get another job. But Willie Randolph, when you think about him, it's hard to think about the '06 team, and I think a lot of Mets fans love that '06 team, as they should, despite them not winning. But Willie Randolph really had that clubhouse unified. A lot of different guys there, a lot of different characters, but that was a clubhouse that was really unified, and I think that manager, Willie Randolph, deserves a lot of credit for that.
No, I totally agree. And yeah, it's in addition to the way he got fired, it's hard to believe he didn't get another job because, yeah, I mean, he was, on the bench for what happened at the end of 2007, but there's a lot of reasons why. And unfortunately, the manager, for better or worse, will take the blame for those situations, but it's not always his fault. So it's really a shame that he didn't get another job. And for what I remember, just didn't even it never even got considered. I mean, I think I remember I think, like the Brewers considered him once, or maybe he went to the Brewers, but it never really happened again. And for a guy who was a well-respected player, for many years with the Yankees and the Dodgers, and he ended his career with the Mets. Played for a long time, was an all-star. To not get another shot is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It's weird. I don't know. Willie Randolph, he's in the hall of great Mets managers. I know it was very short, but I thought he did a fantastic job in a short period of time. All right, Brian, we've got our rosters. That is all set. Now we'll leave it up to the people. Let us know what you think. Do you like Brian's roster better than mine? Do you like my roster better than Brian? Either way, it was a good way to talk about some Mets alumni, some Mets legends. I think it was really fun to see the Mets have all these guys back, and I'm looking forward to seeing more guys come back, because there's a lot of players that were on this list that we didn't even talk about from way of yesteryear and even recent year. So we'll talk more. We got to do this again. You're always a perfect person to talk to when it comes to talking about Mets history, so I always appreciate that. That is Brian Wright. Check him out with Metsalgia, the great work he does with that. Brian, we'll talk soon. Second time on Straight Outta Flushing. Looking at having you on here again.
Look forward to the next time, and this was a lot of fun. I appreciate having me on.
Thank you.